Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the hot, steamy world of 18th century Japanese bathhouse etiquette. You're barefoot on weathered wood, sandals already discarded behind you, the faint scent of cedar in your nose. Water sloshes somewhere deeper inside. There's a low hum of conversation, the occasional squeak of damp feet on polished planks, and a sudden, oddly comforting gust of warm, misty air that envelopes your entire body like a sleepy hug. You're here to relax, but not just yet. Because in this world, bathhouses aren't just about getting clean. They're a full-blown cultural microcosm with unspoken rules, social rituals, and wooden buckets that clack in an oddly rhythmic, almost musical pattern. And if you think you're just going to dip a toe in and lounge like it's a modern spa, well, you probably won't survive this. Not without some help, anyway. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step forward and feel the instant change in temperature, outside air fading into the deep warmth of the Sento. The public bath. Edo period Japan, early 1700s. This place smells faintly of boiling minerals, pine sap, wet linen, and something vaguely citrusy, like dried orange peel crushed under a warm stone. Before you can even glimpse the bath itself, your first challenge looms, the gin can. That's the entry platform where you must, without fail, remove your footwear. No exceptions. You bend down to untie strawberry sandals, crunchy from walking long miles, and place them neatly with the heel toward the door. It's not just about dirt. It's about energy. Shoes represent the chaos of the outside world. The bathhouse is sacred, internal, ritualized space. You step up, barefoot now, and the floorboards creak, a sound you'll hear a lot tonight. Everything creaks. Ceilings, doors, even the occasional wooden ladle if it's too dry. You're greeted, not with words, but a nod, from a stern-faced attendant seated behind a narrow desk. A woman in her 50s, hair wrapped tightly in a white cloth, fan resting across her knees. Her eyes track your movement without moving her head. You get the distinct feeling she could throw that fan like a ninja star if you broke a rule. You're not entirely sure what those rules are yet, so you do the polite thing, a deep bow. Lower than necessary, but hey, better safe than scolded. As you straighten, you notice the faintest smile at the corner of her mouth. Maybe you'll survive this after all. To your left, there's a row of bamboo lockers with hand-carved nameplates and frayed ropes for handles. You reach for one with no name. Many bathers bring their own carved tags, like tiny totems, but you're nameless here. A foreigner. A guest. An observer, for now. You slip off your outer robe, dyed indigo and dusty from the road, and fold it carefully. You place your towel beside it, which, to your surprise, is not one of those big, fluffy hotel jobs. It's about the size of a washcloth. Historians still argue whether this was out of practicality or modesty, but it's clear one thing: you're expected to make it work. As you look around, you start noticing the sounds more clearly. There's a rhythmic clatter of wooden ladles, gentle chatter in dialects you don't understand, and somewhere far back, the hiss of boiling water being poured into a stone basin. You tiptoe forward, the wooden slats warm beneath your feet, and you pass through a norin, a cloth curtain dyed deep blue with white kanji spelling out you, meaning hot water. These curtains don't block your view so much as mark the transition from the outer world to the inner sanctum. And there it is, your first look at the udono, the bath chamber. Steam coils from the sunken tub in the center, rising in hypnotic ribbons to the soot-stained rafters above. Along the perimeter are small wooden stools, low enough to force you into an immediate squat, and beside each is a bucket and ladle. No showers. No jets. No aromatherapy lighting. Just you, the steam, and centuries of communal scrubbing. Someone laughs, not at you, thankfully, and another voice hushes them playfully. A child runs past you naked, giggling, her grandmother hurrying behind with an apologetic bow and a wet cloth flapping in her hand. You're about to take your seat on one of the stools when an elderly man motions to you. He taps his own chest, then the stool beside him, then nods toward the tub. It takes you a moment, but you realize he's offering to show you how it's done. A quiet kindness. An invitation into this steamy, wooden world. You sit beside him and mimic his movements, bucket dipped into the smaller basin beside him, ladle scooping water onto shoulders, chest, and legs. No splashing. Just a rhythmic rinse. Then soap root scrubbed with both hands, no washcloth, then more rinsing. The process is deliberate, almost meditative. Every muscle in your body starts to loosen, not from the heat, but from the familiarity of his movements, repeated probably thousands of times in his life. Quirky tidbit time. Did you know some bathhouses used to have cats trained to meow near overly loud guests? A feline shushing system. Probably the fluffiest bouncers in history. As the old man finishes, he nods to the tub. It's your turn now. And as you take your first slow step toward that still, hot water, you start to realize this isn't just a bath. It's an act of belonging, of submission, of self-cleansing, physically and spiritually. You lower yourself into the tub, and the heat envelopes you. Not sharp, not biting, just there. Like warm hands on every joint. Like sinking into the memory of a fire you never lit but always missed. And with that, your journey into 18th century Japanese bathhouse etiquette truly begins. You slide deeper into the tub, the wooden sides warm against your skin, and your body nearly sighs from relief. It's a shared bath, meaning you're shoulder to shoulder with strangers, but no one speaks. The silence isn't awkward, it's ceremonial. Water laps gently at your collarbones, and steam beads on your eyelashes. This is the part where you stop trying to figure it out. You just float. And let's be clear, no splashing. No kicking. No floating your towel. That tiny cloth you brought? Fold it neatly and rest it on your head, like everyone else. Why? Well, historians still argue whether this was for modesty, hygiene, or just to keep people from bringing laundry into the tub. Probably all three. But here's the trick, you don't ask. You observe. You copy. You blend in by disappearing. That, right there, is rule number 1 in the bathhouse. Blend. Outside the walls of this steamy haven, Edo period life is noisy, hierarchical, and rigid. But in here, samurai soap beside peasants. Merchants sit quietly next to monks. Everyone sheds their status with their clothes. It's the great equalizer, and that's precisely what makes the etiquette so crucial. There's no room for ego in the tub. Except, well, maybe a little room for gossip. While bathhouses maintain a solemn hush inside the tub itself, the dressing area, that's fair game. The moment bathers return to their stools or dry off, chatter resumes, politics, poetry, town rumors, and sometimes rather heated debates about which local tofu shop truly deserves its reputation. A mild example? One diary entry from 1763 records an argument over miso paste that got so animated it caused someone to knock over a rack of towels. Absolute chaos. But let's rewind to your experience now. You're still soaking, arms folded neatly across your chest. You begin to notice things, the tiny carvings in the tub's wooden sides, perhaps the marks of a local artisan. The way the light above, a paper lantern with a flickering flame, casts soft, golden shadows that dance lazily across the ceiling. And somewhere near the corner, an unattended bucket lets out a soft plop as it tips over, releasing a swirl of warm water across the slats. No one reacts. No one needs to. The rhythm of the bathhouse carries on. You decide to step out, the heat beginning to lull you into a kind of warm-boned daze. But even this act, leaving the tub, is coated in quiet ritual. You rise slowly, water cascading down in ripples, and step onto the smooth planks. Immediately, you ladle fresh water over your body one more time. Why? To cleanse yourself of the bath's communal water before drying. It's a sign of respect to those still soaking and a small moment of personal transition. A symbolic return to self. Outside the bath area, you find a small mirror perched on a wooden shelf. It's polished brass, slightly warped, but just enough to let you catch a glimpse of your reflection. Your cheeks are flushed, eyes soft, hair a mess. You look calm. Genuinely so. Now comes the drying process. No fluffy towels here, remember? Just that single tenagui, now soaked. You wring it out, fold it in half, and begin patting yourself dry from the top down. No vigorous rubbing. No hair dryers. Just gentle pressure and patience. As you dry, an old woman hums behind you. She's massaging her legs with rice bran, a traditional exfoliant. The scent is earthy, faintly nutty. She catches your eye and smiles, a slow, knowing one, and pushes her little bowl toward you. You take a pinch, rub it between your fingers. It's like wet sand. You mimic her movements on your arms, and soon your skin feels both squeaky and buttery. A paradox you didn't know was possible. It's about now that your stomach makes its first appearance, loud and unapologetic. The scent of grilled eel and pickled radish has drifted in from a small food stall tucked beside the bathhouse. Many establishments of the time offered light meals post-soak. A sort of proto-spa cuisine, if you will. Salted plums, soft rice cakes, even barley tea chilled in bamboo tubes. Here's your quirky fact of the section. In some regions, it was customary to eat boiled eggs inside the bathhouse. Not before. Not after. During. Why? The prevailing belief was that eggs replenished boiled strength. Imagine carefully peeling a hot egg with wet fingers while neck deep in a tub. It was oddly normal. It's also, thankfully, a tradition that didn't quite survive modern hygiene standards. You reach for your robe and wrap it around yourself. It's not fancy, just cotton, bleached pale, but it feels like armor. Not the protective kind. The welcome back to reality kind. With each layer, you feel the warmth of the bathhouse fading, slowly replaced by the awareness of cool air on your neck, the distant chirp of evening crickets, and the knowledge that outside, the city never sleeps. You bow once more toward the attendant, who bows back just slightly deeper than before. A subtle nod of approval. You've passed the first test. Stepping back into your sandals, you feel the roughness of the straw underfoot again. It's like waking from a dream you weren't ready to leave. But you've been marked now. Not with ink or stamps or souvenir towels, but with a kind of shared understanding. A ritual experienced. A code of silence honored. And as the night air brushes against your skin and the smell of charcoal and grilled eel returns stronger, you realize something curious. You feel cleaner. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. Like you left something behind in that steam, something old and unnecessary. You take one last glance over your shoulder. The lantern outside the bathhouse sways gently in the breeze. Its paper sides glow like the moon through rice paper. And just like that, you turn away, heading into the Edo night. Your body warm, your spirit calm, your towel still faintly smelling of pine. Your sandals press softly against the packed dirt as you make your way down the dimly lit street. The bathhouse behind you grows smaller, its steam now blending into the cool night mist of Edo. Lanterns sway from wooden posts, their flickering light catching in puddles from an earlier rain. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You're not going home yet. There's still one last stop on your nightly routine, the tea house. It's not a fancy place. No geisha, no singing girls, no golden screens. This is a neighborhood chaya, a simple wooden structure with sliding paper doors, low tables, and the earthy smell of roasted tea leaves. You slide the door open with 2 fingers, careful not to disturb the torn patch near the bottom. It squeaks like it always does. Inside, 3 men sit around a small charcoal brazier, sipping from cracked ceramic cups and murmuring about the price of radishes. A boy runs by, barefoot and laughing. A woman behind the counter nods at you. She's always there, hair wrapped tight, eyes sharp but kind. You give her a bow, and she sets to work preparing your usual roasted barley tea. No sugar, no honey. Just the deep, almost smoky flavor that hits the back of your throat and reminds you that you're still alive. That, and the roasted rice crackers she slips onto your tray. You didn't ask for them, but you never do. They just appear. The cup warms your hands, and you settle onto a cushion near the wall. The tea is bitter, yes, but comforting, somehow. Familiar. Like your oldest pair of socks or the sound of your father clearing his throat before telling a story. And then you hear the clack of sandals outside, slow and measured. A new customer. The door slides open, and in steps a man dressed in a faded indigo kimono. He looks like he's been walking all day, his feet dusty and his eyes rimmed red with exhaustion. He bows low to the hostess, and she gestures to a seat by the fire. You watch as he kneels, carefully, and lets out a breath so long it sounds like he's emptying a decade. This is how people recover from life in Edo, not through grand celebrations or boisterous songs, but through repetition. Quiet rituals, shared silences, and the occasional plate of free crackers. You take another sip, the tea now cooler. A warm weight settles in your limbs. The day's stiffness has all but vanished, and a kind of clarity sets in, not the blinding, epiphany kind, but the soft glow that says, you made it through another one. Historically, these chaya were more than tea stops. They were community hubs. Places to exchange news, hear poems, and in some cases, settle disputes. One record from 1789 describes a man so offended by a haiku written about his baldness that he challenged the poet to a contest of radish carving. Apparently, the poet lost. Historians still argue whether this was staged or genuinely competitive. Either way, it's the sort of tale that lives on in places like this. There's a low thump as the tea lady refills your cup, barely interrupting your thoughts. No words are spoken. None are needed. In the corner, someone begins to hum a folk tune. It's not in key. It's not particularly good. But it fits. A melody passed down without sheet music, just muscle memory and a vague recollection of your grandmother singing it while shelling peas. You let your head tilt back slightly and stare up at the rafters. Spiderwebs shimmer in the lamplight, and somewhere in the walls, something tiny scratches softly, maybe a rat, maybe a cricket. It doesn't matter. The tea is warm. The floor is steady. And your mind is quieting. Here's your quirky detail. In some Edo tea houses, patrons used to bring their own teacups from home. Why? Personal pride, superstition, or just poor dishwashing? Scholars can't quite agree. One story tells of a man who refused to drink from anything but his grandmother's chipped blue cup, and when it finally broke, he paid a potter an entire month's wage to recreate it perfectly, including the crack. You finish your second cup and set it down with care. The old man across from you has begun to nod off, his head dipping forward every few seconds before jerking upright. The tea lady lets him be. She knows the kind of day he's had. You probably do, too. You stand, stretch slowly, and tuck your hands into your sleeves. There's no bill to pay. You'll settle that later, or maybe she'll just mark it down with a charcoal hash on the back wall, as she's done for years. You bow once more and step outside. The night has deepened, and the mist is thicker now. The lantern light is softer, and your footsteps sound louder against the empty street. Somewhere, water trickles from a bamboo spout, and a cat stares at you from beneath a shuttered stall. It doesn't move. You walk on. The streets of Edo narrow as you press deeper into the district, closer now to the row of bathhouses favored not by commoners, but by merchants, low-ranking samurai, and retired officials looking for something more refined. You can tell by the lanterns, painted with delicate brushstrokes, intricate family crests, and characters so meticulously drawn they look more like art than signage. You arrive at one such bathhouse, a quiet, tucked-away structure framed in dark wood and a roof of gently curving tiles. A cedar placard hangs above the entrance, worn from decades of steam and sun. You step inside, and the scent strikes you immediately, a blend of enoki wood, damp stone, and a lingering trace of orange peel. Here, the rules run deeper. Before you even approach the water, a host appears. His hakama is pressed, his hair carefully tied. He doesn't speak. Instead, he gestures to a wooden bench where a folded cotton yukata awaits you, and beside it, a handwritten list, not of services, but of etiquette. You scan it quickly, but each line speaks volumes about what's expected of you. Bow to the attendant upon entering. Rinse feet before walking further. No humming, whistling, or audible sighing in the baths. Towels must never touch the bath water. No soap past the threshold. No eye contact longer than 3 seconds. You think, maybe, you'll break that last one without realizing. But not today. You undress slowly, folding your garments as you've seen others do. There's a precise way to tuck the sleeves, shoulder over shoulder, never inside out. That superstition's rooted in funeral rites, you recall, and you're not here to tempt the gods. As you step into the washing area, a row of stone stools greets you. Each one paired with a bucket, ladle, and wooden mirror polished from years of splashing. You sit down and begin your ritual. It's not just about cleanliness. It's about rhythm. Ladle water. Pour. Lather. Rinse. Repeat. The sounds are hypnotic, with tapping stone, trickles cascading off your shoulders, a distant splash as someone settles into the far bath. You take your time. There's no rush. Rushing would be indecent. One strange historical fact lingers in your mind. During the height of bathhouse popularity in the 18th century, Edo saw more bathhouses per capita than any other city on Earth, over 600. That's one for nearly every block. And they weren't just about bathing. They were social hubs, business meeting points, matchmaking venues, and even artistic showcases. That said, not everyone was welcome. Certain professions, tanners, undertakers, and those who dealt with death, were often subtly discouraged from entering upper-class establishments. Historians still argue whether this exclusion was written into law or enforced through quiet custom. Either way, the rules hung thick in the air, like steam on the mirrors. You finish your wash and rise. The path to the bath itself is marked by stepping stones, polished smooth by thousands of damp feet. The water is nearly still, a faint ripple betraying another bather's presence. You bow before entering. You always bow. The custom is old, tracing back to Sento respect for natural elements, and while you don't pray, you still feel it's deserved. The water is hotter than the common bathhouse. You can feel it seep into your muscles, teasing out the tension of the day like a patient masseur. You lower yourself slowly, adjusting your breath. Every exhale leaves a whisper of steam. You glance around, only briefly. A middle-aged man sits to your right, half submerged, eyes closed. His towel is folded neatly atop his head, balanced like a paperweight. You mimic him. Across the way, a young woman dips her fingers into the water, testing the temperature. Mixed-gender baths weren't always common in Edo, but in some refined places, they were tolerated, so long as discretion was observed. That, or the paper dividers were especially thin. The oddest thing about these places? They used oranges. Not just peels, but entire citrus fruits floated in the water to release oils and mask the earthy scent of so many bodies. One record from 1794 even notes a yuzu thief who sneaked into private bathhouses just to pocket floating fruits. He was arrested, reportedly, not for stealing the yuzu, but for dripping on a noble's tatami mat afterward. You close your eyes. The warmth is everywhere. In your joints, your ears, your eyelids. A deep, marrow-soaking kind of heat. It pushes everything else to the background, your thoughts, your worries, even the itch at the back of your throat you've been ignoring all day. All gone now. You lose track of time. That's part of the charm. In Edo, time was marked not by minutes but by moments. The sound of a bamboo water clock tipping, the call of a night watchman, the hush before a neighbor's wind chime struck the hour. And in here, time forgets you too. The silence is sacred, but not total. Someone exhales. Another person adjusts on the stone rim. A towel flutters as it's hung just so. You hear everything, but nothing competes. It's all background, texture, not noise. You let your arms float a little, elbows bent like wings. The water holds you effortlessly. And in that moment, you're not a visitor to Edo. You are Edo. One small quirk you wouldn't expect. Elite bathhouses sometimes featured small hidden alcoves carved into the walls. Just large enough for a guest to hide their tobacco, love letters, or a particularly fine comb. Some are still being discovered in centuries-old ruins. Scholars are still unsure if they were a form of secret messaging or just Edo's version of lost and found lockers. You breathe in. Hinoki. Citrus. Humidity. You breathe out. And the bath keeps you. The water is beginning to feel like a second skin, soft, weightless, and somehow more forgiving than the one you were born with. You linger in it, no longer counting the minutes, simply drifting in and out of awareness like a leaf carried downstream. But eventually, your fingers wrinkle and your body reminds you it's time to move. Staying too long, as the bathhouse signs politely warn, could result in temporary fainting, spontaneous poetry, or memories of past lives. You rise carefully. The bathwater clings to you, then releases, trickling down your limbs in slow streams. You retrieve your towel, still dry, still warm from where it rested on your head, and press it gently against your arms, your shoulders, your chest. No rubbing. That's frowned upon. Dabbing only. The goal here is to leave the bath just damp enough to cool down naturally, but never dripping. The dressing area is quiet. A single attendant offers you a small bowl of barley tea, cold, fragrant, and slightly nutty. You nod your thanks. You sip slowly. It tastes like the echo of roasted rice and river stones. It tastes like 18th century's humility. That, where you've just been in the bath too long and are starting to hallucinate. Now comes one of the more peculiar traditions, the powder room ritual. This isn't about vanity, it's about balance. Bathhouses often offered little bowls of powdered rice starch or finely milled sandalwood, meant to be patted on the skin post-bath. It absorbs excess moisture, adds a faint scent, and, supposedly, protects the body from impure chills. Whether that works or not, you follow the ritual. You dust your neck, your wrists, the small of your back. It feels oddly ceremonial. As though you're being prepped for something, not a night out, but maybe a ghost festival or a dream. Across the room, two elders fold their yukata in synchronized motion. You watch them discreetly. There's a dance to it, left over right, never the reverse, unless, of course, you're dressing a corpse. You triple check your wrap. You step back outside. The cool air kisses your skin like it's been waiting for you. You blink at the contrast, warm candlelight inside, silver moonlight outside. The bathhouse seems to pulse behind you, exhaling steam through the cracks in its ancient wood. Now, here's where things take a quirky turn. In Edo, post-bath strolls were an art form. People didn't just go home, they wandered. They visited tea stalls, small food vendors, even impromptu poetry circles held under paper lanterns. You follow their lead. You head down a narrow alley, the stones slick but familiar. Your wooden sandals click with every step, echoing like a metronome across the walls. And then, yes, there it is, the unmistakable smell of grilled mochi. You make your way to a tiny food stand operated by a stooped man with one good eye and hands that haven't stopped moving since the last shogun. He offers you skewers wrapped in nori and dusted with soybean powder. You don't ask for a price. You hand over 2 copper coins and nod. He smiles, a wide, toothless grin that could be mistaken for a grimace in another time, another country. You chew slowly. The mochi is chewy, salty sweet, and just the right amount of char. It sticks to your teeth a little. You don't mind. You sit on an overturned bucket. This is the part they don't tell you in textbooks. Edo's bathhouse culture wasn't just about hygiene, it was about reinvention. You could be a tired apprentice or a disgraced minor official, and after a bath, a stroll, and a skewer of machi, you'd feel like someone else. Not better, necessarily, but looser, smoother around the edges. And that, for many, was enough. One fascinating fact that surfaces in diaries from this period: some bathhouses offered storytelling sessions after dark. Patrons would gather on tatami mats, tea in hand, as a masked speaker whispered tales of haunted wells, cursed combs, or samurai who bathed in rivers of fire. These weren't just stories, they were lullabies for grown-ups. A way to let go of the day without needing to understand it. Historians still argue whether these sessions were officially sanctioned or simply tolerated, especially since they often involved mild gambling or flirtations whispered behind folding fans. Either way, they persisted. And tonight, you find yourself wondering what kind of story you'd tell if handed the mask. You finish your machi. You bow to the vendor. You start walking again. Edo at night is a different animal. Quieter, softer. The city breathes through bamboo blinds and rustling pine trees. You pass a shop closed for the night, its front covered by an orange curtain with an ink-painted carp. You peek behind it. Just darkness and the smell of lacquered shelves. You wander farther than you planned. That's part of it too. It's said that some bathhouse patrons walked until they found themselves at entirely new bathhouses and simply began the ritual again. No home, no destination, just warm water, cool night air, and an unspoken agreement with the city. One such wanderer, a poet named Ryoji, reportedly bathed 13 times in a single week, composing a new haiku at each stop. His most famous? Steam rises again. My reflection winks at me. In someone else's tub. You laugh quietly. The street tilts upward slightly, and you see another bathhouse flickering in the distance. Maybe you'll stop. Maybe not. Your towel is dry now. Your skin smells faintly of citrus and cedar. Your breath slows. And the city carries you onward. You keep walking. The stones beneath your sandals are smooth from centuries of footsteps, and the alleys wind like veins through the nighttime body of Edo. This late, most streets hum softly, no shouting, no clatter, just the muffled laughter of people still awake and the rhythmic creak of paper lanterns swaying in the breeze. You pass a group of bathhouse workers gathering outside a smaller establishment, likely one of the family-run operations that have been there for generations. They're folding towels with the kind of casual precision that only muscle memory can deliver. A few glance up as you pass, nodding politely. One gives a small bow, towel still slung over her shoulder. You return the gesture. The sense of community here is gentle but deep. Bathhouses in Edo weren't just places to soak. They were neighborhood anchors, equalizers. A samurai might find himself bathing beside a rice merchant, a monk beside a woodcutter. Status mattered less when everyone was equally wet, equally naked, equally steamed. Now, let's talk about that. The nakedness. You've noticed by now that modesty in the bathhouse doesn't quite align with modern expectations. In fact, 18th century Japanese bath culture was far more communal, far more open than what many might assume. Men and women often bathed in the same spaces, not scandalously, but matter-of-factly. This wasn't the product of some libertine philosophy, but more a function of practicality, scarcity of resources, and cultural norms that prioritized cleanliness and ritual over shame. Of course, this communal setup didn't sit well with everyone. During the later part of the 18th century, government officials began to worry about public morals and pushed for the separation of genders in some cities. But the reforms were inconsistently enforced, especially in rural areas and small neighborhoods. Historians still argue whether these bans were respected widely or just created more inventive curtain arrangements. You chuckle at that. The truth is, the idea of privacy was different. Not absent, just differently defined. What was private was your thoughts, your words, your inner life. Your body? That was just another part of the everyday, like your sandals or your lunchbox. You duck into another alley. There's a strange, soft music wafting out of a second-floor window, the twang of a shamisen, accompanied by someone humming, off-key but tender. You pause to listen. It's not a performance, just someone playing for themselves. You lean against the wall, letting the sound blend with the warm night air. This part of town is older, a little rougher around the edges. The lanterns flicker more. The wood creaks under your feet. But the bathhouses here? They're legendary. You're told of one up ahead, a place with no name on its curtain, only the symbol for steam embroidered in white on black. It's said to use a special mineral spring, hot enough to leave your skin tingling for hours. Some even say it cures heartbreak, though they never specify how. As you round the corner, you spot it. It's low and unassuming. A narrow entrance, a wooden water bucket at the side, and a tiny sign that reads simply, "Enter quietly." You do. Inside, the smell hits you first, pine smoke, citrus peel, and something more, metallic. Iron, maybe. The water here is reddish, cloudy with minerals. You pay your coin, bow to the elderly attendant, and step into the washing area. Once again, you begin the ritual. Ladle. Soap root. Rinse. The movements come more naturally now, almost like your body remembers better than your mind. You scrub your feet with care. You run water behind your ears. You take your time. And then you sink into the mineral bath. This one bites. The temperature is higher, just enough to make you wince as you lower yourself in, but not enough to stop. The heat soaks into your bones. You feel like you're being cooked, but in a good way. If bone broth had feelings, this would be one of them. The other bathers are silent. No one speaks in this bathhouse. It's one of those unspoken rules. Even the attendants only whisper, and even that feels like too much. The silence is thick, not oppressive, but absolute. Every breath you take feels like part of the space, like your lungs are echo chambers. There's an old man seated across from you. His eyes are closed. His hands rest on his knees. He's perfectly still, so much so that for a moment you wonder if he's part of the woodwork. Then he exhales, slow and even, and you realize he's just deeper into this than anyone else here. A fly buzzes overhead. It hovers for a second, then dips toward the water and instantly regrets its decision. You watch it struggle for a moment before one of the attendants scoops it out with practiced indifference and a bamboo ladle. You lean back. The ceiling here is lower, and a single lantern dangles from a crooked beam, its paper shell stained from years of steam. The shadows it casts ripple across the walls like fish. You watch them swim, letting your thoughts scatter. Here's a fun fact. In some high-end bathhouses, you could order yuzu baths during the winter solstice, hot water filled with floating citrus fruits, their oils said to prevent colds and ward off evil spirits. Some bathhouses even carved little faces into the yuzu. Imagine bathing in hot fruit soup while a lemon smiles at you. You smile too. Historians still debate whether these seasonal traditions were rooted in Sento purification rites or just clever marketing by citrus farmers. Either way, the result was the same: warmth, fragrance, and a tiny sense of magic. You close your eyes. The heat presses against you, heavy and kind. Your mind wanders, but softly, like a feather drifting across tatami mats. You think about the nameless old man, about the towel on your head, about the way your fingers have pruned. Somewhere outside, a night bird calls. And you stay where you are, suspended in water, time, and steam. You don't know how long you've been in the water. Time folds inside a bathhouse. It doesn't disappear, it just goes quiet, like it's resting its eyes. The only thing that pulls you out of this warm limbo is the gentle creak of a door sliding open. You glance up. A young woman steps inside, holding a tray. She's not a bather, she's staff. On the tray, cups of barley tea, still warm, still steaming slightly despite the humidity. She places them on a small wooden ledge just outside the soaking area, bows wordlessly, and leaves. You watch the steam curl from the cups. A few of the bathers slowly rise, stepping carefully to retrieve one. You do the same. The tea is simple, toasty, earthy, no sugar, no milk, no fanfare. Just roasted grain and hot water. And somehow, it's exactly what you needed. The bathhouse isn't a spa. Not in the modern, cucumber on ice, ambient flute music sense. It's not here to pamper. It's here to restore. You sip the tea slowly, holding the cup in both hands. There's something deeply meditative about it all, the sequence, the heat, the rituals. You begin to notice how everything is part of a larger rhythm. Every part of the experience has a place. Wash first, then soaked, then tea, then dry off. Then maybe, if the bathhouse is extra special, a massage with camellia oil or a nap in a quiet tatami room. You remember hearing a story once about an old Edo-era proverb, one bath is worth 1,000 doctors. It's easy to scoff at that now, but in a time before antibiotics, hot water and clean skin really were revolutionary. Communal bathing was, in some ways, one of the most effective public health systems of the time. But it wasn't just about physical hygiene. There was a spiritual layer too. You've probably heard of misogi, the Sento practice of ritual purification with cold water under waterfalls. But in cities like Edo, where waterfalls weren't exactly convenient, bathhouses became the next best thing. The act of cleansing the body became a symbolic reset, an internal cleansing masked as an external routine. Of course, not everyone viewed it that way. Historians still argue whether the average citizen saw their evening soak as a religious rite or just a good excuse to not smell like fish. Probably both. People are complicated. The sound of dripping water fills the room. You rise, stepping back into the washing area. It's time to rinse off the mental traces, let the heat linger only in memory. You take your time. As always, there's a basket nearby with folded yukata, light cotton robes. You dry off, slip one on, and knot the sash. The robe smells faintly of cedar. As you leave the soaking area, a small corridor opens to the right. You follow it. This leads to what they call the cooling room. It's simple, low light, slatted wooden walls, a small window open to the night breeze. A handful of people sit quietly, some reclining on bamboo mats, others sipping more tea. The air is cooler here, but not cold. Just enough to let your body sigh. You sit on a cushion and close your eyes. In the quiet, your mind starts to wander again. To what came before this night, your long walk, the food stalls, the people in the streets. To the rhythms of this city that never seems to fully sleep, but also never rushes. Edo breathes in pulses, not in panicked gasps. You remember a detail you read in a dusty book once, that Edo, in its peak, had more bathhouses per capita than any other city in the world. Over 600 in total. Each one a slightly different world. Some catered to laborers, others to the upper class. A few, especially those run by geisha, blurred the line between bathing and performance, with lantern-lit dance and quiet music drifting over the steam. You glance to your left. On a wooden shelf, a folded note rests. It looks like it's been there a while, ignored, unclaimed. You reach out, gently unfold it. Inside, a haiku written in a neat, practiced hand. Steam rises in dusk. The carp forgets the river. Only heat remains. You smile. Someone, once, must have left it there for another bather to find. Maybe tonight was your turn. Suddenly you feel a little more present. Like you've been gently called back to the surface of your thoughts, without any splash. The heat is still in your bones, but now there's a breeze whispering around your skin. You realize you're hungry again. Outside the cooling room, there's a small counter, staffed by an old man with a big mustache and no eyebrows, don't ask. He's grilling something skewered and glistening. You order one. Yakitori. Chicken thigh, probably. The smell is divine. You take a bite and nearly melt. The savory, charred edges, The glaze, some combination of soy, mirin, and a secret ingredient you suspect might just be thyme. Bathhouses were never just about water. They were about being fed, seen, warmed, and reminded you were still a person, even after a long, difficult day. A woman walks by with her young son, both in yukata. The boy's hair is still damp, sticking up in uneven tufts. He clutches a fan with a picture of a carp leaping over waves. The carp again. That little fish has shown up more times tonight than you'd expect. You remember how carp, or koi, are symbols of perseverance in Japanese culture, able to swim upstream, leaping over waterfalls, transforming into dragons in legend. A fitting metaphor, you suppose, for a city that rebuilds itself with every earthquake, every fire, every shift of power. You finish your skewer and stretch. The rope shifts on your shoulders. Your muscles ache, but in that pleasant way, like you've done something right. Like your body is saying, hey, thanks for not making me sit in a chair for 10 hours today. You chuckle softly. Your laughter joins the quiet night, unnoticed by anyone but the nearby lantern, which sways once in agreement. You step outside into the night. The warmth clings to you like silk, reluctant to let go. The air is cooler than inside the bathhouse, but still thick with summer. Cicadas scream in the trees with the drama of an unpaid opera cast. You're not sure if it's beautiful or maddening, probably both. The bathhouse stands behind you now, glowing softly like a paper lantern. You feel different. Not just clean, but rewired. Lighter. As if someone slipped a new version of yourself into the same skin while you weren't looking. And yet, Edo doesn't sleep. You walk the narrow streets again, yukata rustling at your ankles. Other bath doors amble past, their silhouettes fuzzy in the lantern haze. No one rushes. Everyone has the same floaty gait you do, the post-bath shuffle of people who just left their stress on a wooden bench and forgot to take it back. You round a corner and smell something unmistakable, ink and charcoal. You've stumbled into the neighborhood of woodblock printers. Here, artisans sit inside low shops, barely lit by hanging lanterns, working quietly even at this hour. You peek into one. A man, shirtless, with a towel around his neck, leans over a block of cherrywood, carving intricate lines with maddening precision. Every flick of the wrist will someday become part of a full-color ukiyo-e print, maybe showing a kabuki actor mid-roar or a geisha adjusting her hairpin. He doesn't notice you. Or maybe he does and doesn't care. Either way, you're a ghost for now. You keep walking. What a weirdly magical city. You can go from a boiling bath to an art gallery without ever crossing a street. You pass another house, this one quieter, darker. Inside, the shadows move with purpose. Two women sit across from each other, folding thin squares of rice paper into small, precise shapes. You can't tell what they're making. Envelopes? Lantern linings? Wrappers for sweets? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's enough that people are always making something. You pause in front of a small canal. A cat sits on the edge, watching fish. Or pretending to. You and the cat regard each other like two mildly suspicious neighbors. It flicks its tail. You nod. The moment passes. You turn again, and now you're standing in front of a sake stall. The owner, an older woman with hair in a tight bun and sleeves rolled up, beckons. Not aggressively, just a soft gesture, as if to say, if you're thirsty, I understand. So you are. She pours you a small cup from a bottle wrapped in cloth. You don't ask what kind it is. Doesn't matter. It's smooth and slightly warm, with a faint taste of rice and banana and something you can't quite name. There's a bench nearby, made from a single worn plank of wood. You sit. The woman returns inside. You're alone again, sake in hand, stars peeking shyly from behind a veil of mist and lantern glow. The cup warms your hands, then your throat, then your chest. Somewhere in the distance, a flute plays. Not well, but not terribly either. Someone is learning, and they're letting the world listen. You close your eyes. There's a myth you recall, half forgotten, that people who soak too long in the bathhouse might accidentally wash away their soul. As if the steam can loosen not just dirt, but memory. You chuckle softly at the idea, but only softly. Because part of you wonders what's left behind in those pools. How many stories have been whispered, confessed, or forgotten in those steaming rooms? Historians still argue whether bathhouses were primarily functional or spiritual. Whether they served hygiene, healing, or hush-hush rendezvous between lovers and spies. The answer is probably yes. To all of it. Because nothing in Edo was ever just one thing. You sip the last of the sake. A breeze lifts the edge of your robe. You glance down and realize your feet are dusty again. Already. As if the city is reminding you gently, you belong to the world, not the bath. Cleanliness is temporary. But so is everything else. You stand, leaving a few coins on the bench. The woman sees and bows from the doorway. Now your body hums from within. The bath heat. The barley tea. The skewered chicken. The sake. You feel full. Like someone who's been rewound, not just fed. You pass a row of closed shops, rice sellers, candle makers, a strange store selling nothing but hair combs. You try to imagine modern cities doing this, walking barefoot past candle shops with damp hair, eating grilled snacks in a cotton robe. Doesn't quite translate. Maybe that's the point. The 18th century bathhouse wasn't an escape from life. It was life. It pulsed through the city like blood, connecting strangers through silence, steam, and skin. It was ordinary magic, the kind you don't notice until it's gone. Ahead, a group of children giggle as they skip down the street, chasing a paper fan on the wind. You step aside to let them pass, then walk on. The city exhales. So do you? You wake to the sound of soft knocking. Not urgent, just rhythmic. Polite. You blink your eyes open and realize you've dozed off in the small inn you rented after your stroll. Futon beneath you, paper screen above, and that same faint smell of enoki cedar lingering like a memory. The world is dim, pinkish. Early dawn. You rise slowly, your limbs still heavy from last night's bath. You slide open the screen to find a tray waiting outside. Breakfast. The tray holds rice, pickled plums, miso soup, and, of course, a small porcelain cup of tea. No note, no chatter. Just a meal, prepared without fanfare, because hospitality doesn't need to raise its voice. You eat in silence, savoring every bite like it's a secret. The pickled plum is so sour it makes your eyes water, and you like it anyway. After breakfast, you head outside again. This time, you're going somewhere special. You've heard whispers of a rare bathhouse, not in the center of Edo, but tucked near the edge, where the river's slow and the trees thicken. Fewer lanterns, fewer people. A place for those who seek not just warmth, but clarity. It's called the Still Steam. No one can quite agree on when it was built. Some say it appeared overnight during a foggy spring. Others claim it's been here since the first shogun soaked his battle-weary feet. Historians still argue whether the bathhouse even existed in official records, or if it was simply kept out of them on purpose. You take the long way there. Through the quieter alleys, past men sweeping their storefronts, women hanging linens in the morning sun, children carrying buckets of water with both hands and gritted teeth. The city stretches and yawns around you, rubbing the sleep from its eyes. Eventually, you see it. The still steam doesn't look like much. In fact, it looks like less than much. The building is squat, plain, and half swallowed by bamboo. No signage. Just a stone basin outside filled with perfectly clear water, and a bell. You ring it. The sound is low and mellow, like a monk's laugh. A few moments later, the door slides open with the quiet grace of a secret. An old man greets you. His face is lined like tree bark, but his eyes are sharp. He says nothing, only gestures for you to enter. Inside, there is no music. No chatter. just stillness, like the pause between breaths. You undress in a small cedar room and place your clothes into a basket already carved with your birth zodiac animal. Somehow, they knew. You're not sure how. You stop asking questions. The bath is different here. There is no pool, no tiles. Just a single wooden tub, big enough for one person, steaming quietly in the center of the room. The steam rises slowly, almost shyly, and smells faintly of moss and wet stone. You step in. The water is not hot. Not cold either. It's exact. The perfect temperature for forgetting what time is. You sit. The tub creaks softly beneath your weight. The room around you disappears. Not literally, but in that way things do when you stop trying to name them. Time folds. And that's when you hear it, the soft splash of water behind you. You turn, but no one is there. Then, another sound. This time, like cloth being wrung out. Again, nothing. You're not afraid. It feels expected. A voice speaks, low and amused, even silence has echoes. You glance around. No one. Was it in your head? Or in the room? A scholar once theorized that certain Edo bathhouses sat atop old temples, and that steam carries memory the way smoke carries prayers. Historians still argue whether steam could be a kind of spirit ink, writing ghostly messages across the skin of time. You lean back against the tub's edge, letting the water rise to your neck. Then it happens. Not suddenly, but gradually. The way light bleeds into sky before sunrise. You start to see things. Not hallucinations. More like suggestions. Shadows that form the shape of memories you never lived. A woman brushing her child's hair. A samurai removing his armor. A poet scribbling lines on damp parchment. The still steam doesn't just clean your body, it rinses your mind. You exhale, and even your worries sound softer. It's said that those who bathe here sometimes leave with dreams they didn't enter with. That idea settled in their heads like birds choosing a warm roof. That once, a playwright walked in tired and blocked, and walked out with a 5-act kabuki play fully formed. You're not writing a play, but something's changing. You feel unreasonably fond of the bath itself, as if it knows you. Like it's not just water, but something that chose to take the form of water today. When you finally stand to leave, the water clings to you for just a second longer than it should. Like it's reluctant to let go. Like a goodbye whispered through warm mist. You towel off, get dressed, and step outside into the morning. The city is louder now. But you aren't. You walk back toward the heart of Edo, each step slower than the last. You know you'll remember this bath not for its temperature or its cedar planks, but for the silence it gave you. A silence thick with memory. With meaning. With echoes. And maybe, just maybe, with you. You're back in the city, but something's different. Not the streets, they're as busy as ever. Vendors calling out today's prices. Children darting between feet like fish in a stream. But you're moving slower, seeing more. The edge has worn off your thoughts, like a stone smoothed by water. You wander without aim now, letting your feet decide. They carry you into a small neighborhood known for its yuna, or bath attendants, not the workers at the bathhouses themselves, but women trained in the art of post-bath care. That's right, even the drying off process was once ceremonial. You duck into a narrow building marked with a painted wooden fan. A soft chime announces your entrance. Inside, the room smells like steamed rice and lavender oil. A young woman greets you with a deep bow. She gestures for you to sit on a cushion, and another offers you a warm towel. Not for cleaning, just comfort. A third woman enters, holding a delicate bamboo brush. She explains, in the faintest whisper, that she'll begin with a cues, a traditional scalp and back brushing that helps you keep the steam in. Yes, keep the steam in. Apparently, letting it escape too fast invites bad dreams. You sit, and the brushing begins. Her strokes are slow, rhythmic. It feels like someone combing your thoughts, untangling strands of memory you didn't know had knotted. It's not painful, but it does make you feel something. Like nostalgia, or the memory of being held as a child. There's even a superstition tied to this. Some claim these post-bath rituals could improve your luck in poetry contests or help resolve domestic disputes. Historians still argue whether the effectiveness was real or merely the result of a society that deeply respected structure and ritual. Still, the Yuna took it seriously. The second part of the ritual is the drying cloth, linen squares warmed over charcoal, then folded precisely and placed across your back, your shoulders, your arms. Not patted, but pressed. As if imprinting peace onto your skin. You hear soft humming. Not from one voice, but many. A lullaby without words. And then, the strangest moment of all. The oldest Yuna in the room approaches. She holds a lacquered bowl filled with warm water infused with camellia petals. She dips a long-handled ladle and gently flicks water toward your feet. She murmurs something you don't quite catch, something about sending the heat downward. According to old belief, heat lingering too long in the chest could cause overthinking, melancholy, even romantic confusion. Sending it to the feet grounded your emotions, restored balance. Modern science might laugh, but your feet do feel warmer. And your heart? Quieter. You realize that everything in this place is designed not just to clean the body, but to honor it. Not as a temple, but as a guest house for the soul. After the ritual, you're handed a fan. Not for cooling off, but as a reminder, let things unfold. It's printed in brushstroke kanji, one you can't read but somehow understand anyway. You bow deeply. Not because it's required, but because you feel like you're thanking someone older than time. Back on the street, you walk past men sharpening blades, apprentices folding paper, dogs trotting behind fishmongers. The usual. But everything feels newly wrapped in silk. You stop at a tea stand, and the vendor smiles before you even order. You just came from the fan house, didn't you? She says. You blink. How did she know? She points to your posture. People who leave that place walk like fog. You laugh, and she laughs with you. She gives you a free cup of matcha, and you sip it while watching the afternoon slow itself down. You notice now, the rhythm of a city isn't just noise. It's choreography. One you hadn't been dancing in until now. You head east again, toward a street with bathhouses said to cater to writers, artists, and monks. Legend says one of the great ukiyo-e masters got the idea for his most famous wave sketch in the bath, just as the water sloshed over the edge and curled perfectly against the tile. Historians still argue whether the bathhouses truly inspired masterpieces, or if the stories were later inventions to romanticize the mundane. But you're starting to suspect it doesn't matter. If a bath makes you feel like an artist, isn't that already art? You glance down and realize your hands are moving. Sketching invisible shapes. Mapping thoughts. Your fingers still remember the sensation of that brush on your scalp. And your mind? It's no longer racing ahead or dragging behind. It's here. With you. In the steam. You pass a child playing with a fan, twirling it so fast it becomes a blur. You wave. She laughs. The fan snaps closed with a clap, and she vanishes into an alley like a little ghost. The scent of sesame oil trails from a vendor's cart, and you're reminded you're hungry again. But it's not urgent. Hunger, like everything else in Edo, is something to observe, then respond to with care. You think of that warm towel, the camellia petals, the hands that dried your shoulders as if reminding them they belong to something worth tending. And you keep walking. You turn the corner into a quieter part of the district, one where signs are fewer, foot traffic is light, and the air smells faintly of enoki wood and boiled rice. Here, the bathhouses are smaller, older, and almost hidden. No flashy lanterns or painted murals. Just plain wooden facades with thin Norin curtains fluttering at the entrance. Locals call these the Shizuki-yu, or quiet waters. You wouldn't find them unless you knew someone, or wanted long enough to be invited. You pause before one with a faded curtain that reads simply, "For reflection." Inside, no one speaks. Not a whisper, not a greeting. Only the soft creak of old floorboards and the occasional drip of water. The silence isn't empty, it's textured. Like snow muffling the city. Or the pause between breaths. You're handed a small wooden token. No instructions. Just a gesture toward the inner chambers. You undress slowly. Not out of modesty, but reverence. Every movement here seems to belong to something sacred. Your robe folds itself with a kind of elegance. Even your toes seem quieter on the wooden slats. You step into the bath. The water isn't hot. Just warm enough to remind you, you're here now. You close your eyes, and for a moment, nothing. No thoughts. No memories. Just the pulse of water and the faint echo of someone's breath. This is where people came to forget. Forget arguments, debts, lost love, the price of rice, the worry of whether your haiku made sense. But it wasn't escape. It was suspension. And in that space, new thoughts could form. Not from urgency, but from stillness. You hear a tiny splash. An elderly man is sitting across from you. He hasn't acknowledged your presence, and he won't. That's the etiquette here, shared space without shared pressure. Everyone is allowed their silence. But you notice something odd. He's carving something. Not loudly, just the faint scrape of wood against blade. A small box is forming in his lap, its edges smoothed by time. His hands move with the rhythm of someone who's done this for decades. A ritual, not a task. The box, you later learn, is called a yubako, a bath box. People would carve them during long soaks, then use them to store personal items, love letters, or dried herbs to scent future baths. Some boxes were even buried with their owners. The idea? That your soul might carry the scent of cedar and yuzu into the next world. Historians still argue whether this custom was widespread or limited to eccentric poets. Either way, the practice lingered in memory, like perfume on an old scarf. You glance at your own hands. Empty. Fidgety. You wish you had a box to carve. Instead, you trace invisible patterns on the surface of the water. Circles. Spirals. Waves. The man finishes a curve and sets the box aside, letting the wood rest on a folded towel. He rises, bows faintly, not to you, but to the bath itself, and disappears behind the curtain. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. You stay in the water until your skin begins to pucker. Not in a wrinkled, tired way, but like soft rice paper, tender and porous. You step out. There's no towel handed to you here. Instead, a small clay pot of rice bran is placed by the door. You rub it over your skin, like they did centuries ago, feeling it absorb the last traces of sweat and doubt. You dress slowly. Outside, the street is still quiet. But now it seems alive with memory. As if every stone has held 1,000 bare feet. You start walking again. Past a paper lantern maker, his fingers stained red from the ink. Past two women gently combing each other's hair beneath a parasol. Past a drunk poet asleep under a tree, snoring softly and clutching a fan that reads heat is temporary. You smile. The city doesn't feel strange anymore. You've slipped into its rhythm. You don't even flinch when a bicycle bell rings behind you, a foreign sound in this century, but somehow fitting. At the next corner, you spot something unusual, a small group gathered around a storyteller. Not a loud one, no clanging drums or dramatic masks. Just a man sitting on a mat, holding a simple picture board. He flips through scenes as he speaks softly. You edge closer, curious. He's telling a tale of a monk who fell asleep in a bath and dreamed of a world where water sang. In the dream, every drop carried a message. Regret. Hope. Forgiveness. The monk woke up soaked and changed. The storyteller ends his tale with a bow and a whispered, Don't underestimate where steam can take you. You make eye contact, and he smiles. You smell like cedar, he says. You blink, then nod. I've been walking a long time. He gestures to the mat beside him. Then sit. Let the rest of the world catch up. You do. And for the first time in hours, you don't feel the need to move. You sit quietly beside the storyteller, the woven mat pressing lightly against your legs, the bamboo fibers warm from the late afternoon sun. The city doesn't demand anything from you anymore. It's as if your pulse has synced with its ancient tempo. Around you, the small crowd murmurs, shifting slightly, not out of impatience but anticipation. The storyteller nods again and sets his picture board aside. He begins to pack up, his silence as eloquent as his words. You watch him tie the board with a strip of cloth, place it into a weathered satchel, and bow deeply to the group. Until the next bath, he says, an old idiom meaning until we meet again in peace. Then he's gone, swallowed by the flow of kimono-clad shoppers and sandal-clicking students. You linger a moment longer, then rise. Your joints feel looser, your mind quieter. You turn onto a shaded path that leads uphill, lined with plum trees. Their fruit hangs low and sour, promising jam and vinegar if someone has the patience. As you climb, you pass a tea house. Two women in striped yukata are deep in a game of Go. One glances up at you and smirks. Too late for tea. Perfect time for vinegar, she teases. You nod like you understand. But what you're really after is a bathhouse known only by rumor, the Uragi no Yu, or Bath of Gentle Trembling. Locals say it's tucked into the slope of the hill, carved partway into stone. The water there isn't the hottest, or clearest, or even the cleanest. But they say you'll walk out changed. You reach a weathered sign, a single character painted in fading red ink, you. Just hot water. Understated. Confident. You duck under the entrance. No door, just a curtain made of thin hemp threads, parting like rainfall as you enter. Inside, the air is thick with mineral warmth and faint steam. The floor is uneven rock, not smooth by design but by decades of footsteps. An old woman greets you. She doesn't speak but gestures toward a bench. You sit. She takes your sandals, rinses them with fragrant water, and sets them in a cubby. Then she hands you a small piece of silk cloth, about the size of your palm. You raise an eyebrow. She nods and points at your chest, mimicking a slow circular motion. Odd. A hard cloth. Used in this bathhouse as part of a personal ritual, it's meant to rest over your heart while you soak. Some say it keeps your emotions from dissolving too quickly in the water. Others say it lets them out, gently, so they don't hurt. Historians still debate whether this practice came from mountain monks or lonely courtesans. Either way, it lingers here like a soft tradition, part folklore, part muscle memory. You undress, again with care. Each time feels less like disrobing and more like shedding centuries of noise. You step into the spring-fed bath. The water is different here. Slightly murky, tinted amber from the iron-rich soil. It smells faintly metallic, with a whisper of sulfur. Not unpleasant, just grounding. Like the earth itself is steeping you. You float. The hard cloth rests on your chest, warmed by your skin, damp from the rising mist. There's a soft vibration beneath you. Not from machinery, there is none. But the rocks tremble slightly, as if the mountain is breathing beneath the bathhouse. Hence the name. The sensation is subtle, gentle, like a lullaby hummed by tectonic plates. You lose track of time. Somewhere nearby, a bell chimes. Low and slow. A monk's bell, maybe, or a child playing with a cooking pot. You open your eyes, and you're no longer alone. A man sits at the far end of the bath. He's writing something on rice paper using a brush the size of a toothbrush. The steam curls the edges of the page, but he doesn't seem to mind. His hair is tied back, his eyes half-lidded. You catch the character he's writing over and over, Nagai. Long perhaps a name. Perhaps a memory. You consider asking him what it means, but decide not to. In this bath, silence feels like respect. Instead, you focus on your breath. In through the nose, out through the chest. The hard cloth rises and falls with the rhythm. Your pulse echoes in your ears. It doesn't sound like a heartbeat, it sounds like distant footsteps on gravel. You wonder, fleetingly, if some part of you is walking elsewhere right now. Wandering the street below. Browsing pickled plums. Listening to shamisen music from an open window. Or maybe you never left the first bath at all. Maybe this is a dream echo. Maybe these bathhouses exist in layers, like pages of a diary written in wet ink. The thought makes you smile. You glance down at your fingers. Wrinkled. Not from age, but from time well spent. You rise slowly. Back in the changing room, the old woman is waiting. She doesn't offer a towel, just holds out a small wooden comb. You hesitate. She nods. You take it, running it gently through your damp hair. The act is comforting, like scratching a memory you didn't know itched. She bows once, then turns away. You exit quietly. The hemp curtain brushes your shoulder like a farewell. The outside world is somehow brighter. The air feels thinner, lighter. As if the bathhouse filtered not just your pores, but your regrets. At the base of the hill, the city is still bustling. But you're moving slower now. Calmer. Every sound seems softened by invisible steam. You step into a narrow alleyway and notice your reflection in a puddle. Not cleaner. Not younger. Just softer. You like that. You continue walking, weaving through a quiet residential stretch where bamboo fences lean lazily against moss-covered stones. The sun is lower now, diffused through a veil of thin clouds, casting everything in a honeyed haze. The kind of light that makes you think, maybe I could stay here forever. And maybe you could. The city is curled around you like warm cloth. Even the cats, lounging on roof tiles, don't twitch when you pass. They've accepted your presence. That's rare. You follow the sound of rushing water and soon find a tiny wooden sign, almost hidden in ivy, that reads, Shimizu no Yu. You remember hearing about this one from a merchant near the river. It's not really a bathhouse, he'd said with a shrug. It's more like a shrine for rinsing the soul. Sure. You slip through the gate. There's no attendant, no coins exchanged. Just a path that leads to a small wooden hut perched beside a spring-fed pool. The water here isn't warm, it's cold. Icy, really. Flowing straight from the mountains with all the subtlety of a samurai slap. And yet, people still come. Not to relax, but to reset. You kneel by the edge, dipping your fingers in. It stings. Sharp and shocking. A total contrast to the sleepy warmth you've come to expect. Still, something about it draws you in. You step in, 1 foot at a time. The shock climbs your legs, but instead of retreating, your body adjusts. Breath quickens, then steadies. Numbness gives way to clarity. The cold forces you present. Every moment, every drop, demands attention. No drifting, no dreaming. Just now. You dunk your head. When you resurface, your lungs feel like they've just been introduced to air again. It's bracing. Exhilarating. You can almost hear your thoughts reorganizing themselves. Some historians argue this cold spring tradition predates even the earliest bathhouses. They were used by Yamabushi, mountain monks, who believed the icy water cleansed not just the body, but desire itself. Others suggest it was a way to test spiritual resilience. Either way, the sensation remains timeless. Startling, but purifying. You climb out slowly, letting the breeze whip across your soaked skin. A robe waits on a hook. You wrap yourself in it, and it feels like slipping back into a womb made of clouds. Beside the spring, you notice a stone tablet with a haiku etched in it. Ice bites the silence. Thoughts flee into winter light. Only breath remains. You smile. That last line feels exactly right. As you make your way back toward the city's hum, you feel new, not just bathed, but rebooted. Like the cold dissolved old versions of yourself and replaced them with something quieter, clearer. You stop at a corner cart for roasted chestnuts. The vendor doesn't ask questions, just hands them over in a twist of paper and nods. The warmth seeps into your hands. You munch one slowly, the sweet paste rounding you further. The city grows louder as you descend a narrow street back into a busy district. But it doesn't jar you now. You're coated in invisible armor, a layer of calm that doesn't melt. You pass another bathhouse. This one's built like a miniature palace, carved lions, lanterns, and three-tiered roofs. A group of children race in, giggling, towels bouncing behind them like little capes. One boy pauses, catching your eye. He grins, then vanishes through the curtain. You half expect to hear a splash. Instead, you hear singing. A woman's voice, high and fluttery like wind in reeds. The melody's unfamiliar, but something about the rhythm pulls at your ribs, like a lullaby your grandmother might have hummed if she'd grown up in Osaka instead of Omaha. The sound drifts through the street, soft but insistent. You follow it. It leads you not to a bathhouse, but to a courtyard garden hidden behind a paper lantern shop. There, under a sprawling persimmon tree, 3 women are rinsing their hair with bowls of flour-steeped water. They laugh between pores, sloshing hibiscus-scented water over each other's backs. You're not sure if you should watch, or turn away, or kneel down and beg to be included. Instead, you close your eyes. The scent reaches you anyway, citrusy, a little bitter, a little sweet. Cleansing in its own right. Historians still debate whether these courtyard rituals were part of private household customs or informal neighborhood clubs. The line between public bathhouse and domestic bathing blurred often in the Edo period. What's certain is that women carved out sanctuaries of beauty even without steam or stone tiles. One of the women notices you, raises a hand in lazy greeting. You wave back, then slip quietly down the street, your footsteps echoing against lacquered wood and old brick. The evening deepens. The lanterns blink to life one by one, glowing like fireflies caught in jars. You stop to admire a pair shaped like koi fish. Their fins ripple slightly in the breeze, casting dancing shadows across the cobblestones. The vendor steps out, hands you a miniature lantern on a string, no charge, just a nod. You carry it like a charm, like a wish written in light. The night has arrived, but you don't feel tired. You feel restored, and just a little more awake than usual. You walk on, lantern in hand, your path lit not just by paper and flame, but by the soft afterglow of every moment leading here. The city at night is something else, less performance, more secret. It breathes differently, slower, more real. The streets are emptier now, except for the occasional shadow moving behind a shoji screen or the muffled laughter of someone soaking in their final bath of the day. The scent of roasted barley tea drifts past a wooden doorway, and somewhere above you, wind chimes tinkle like distant bells of memory. You come across a tiny signboard hung from a crooked nail. It reads, simply, "For those who can't sleep." Perfect. The door creaks open into a bathhouse you swear wasn't there this morning. Inside, the space is narrow but impossibly tall. The walls are lined with books, hundreds of scrolls, loose-leaf poems, and faded woodblock prints. A bathhouse/library? You blink. A man in a sleeping cap offers you slippers, gestures toward a deep, wooden tub in the center. You step in, the water just warm enough to make you sigh out loud. As you sink lower, the walls seem to shift. The steam curls upward and blurs the outlines of the scrolls, but instead of erasing them, it brings them to life. Stories whisper from the edges. Tales of long-lost warriors bathing before battle, of poets who composed verses while scrubbing their knees. One scroll drifts down like a falling leaf, and you catch it. The ink is smeared, but you can still read a line. To be clean is not to be rid of dirt, but of hurry. You laugh softly. That's not wrong. Historians still argue whether bathhouses doubled as story-sharing spaces or if this kind of scroll collecting was unique to certain Buddhist temples. Either way, the link between cleansing the body and exercising the mind was deeply woven into Japanese life. You close your eyes. The water sloshes gently as your heartbeat syncs with its rhythm. There's a woman humming somewhere nearby again, same melody as earlier. But this time, it's joined by the delicate clink of teacups and the slow rustle of someone turning a page. Time gets gooey in here. You don't know how long you soak, only that when you rise, your fingers are wrinkled and your thoughts smooth. You dry off slowly and step outside, where the night is fully dressed in moonlight. The lanterns are quieter now, no longer blinking for attention but content just to glow. You wander toward a wide avenue you haven't seen before. Along its edges are communal rest areas, tatami platforms open to the street. People lie back, half covered in robes, sipping warm sake and sighing together like a chorus of satisfied ghosts. You join them. Someone passes you a small clay cup. It's sweet, a bit nutty, and definitely not the kind of thing you'd find in your local supermarket. It tastes like almonds and campfires and old secrets. You lie down, staring up at a skyscraper clean of clouds. The stars wink. One of them shoots across the sky, and you whisper a wish you'll never remember, but which feels true nonetheless. As you listen, someone nearby is murmuring a bedtime story to their child. You catch phrases between the wind, something about a fox spirit, a mirror that showed your truest face, and a bath that healed heartbreak. You close your eyes. Not to sleep, not yet, but to let it all steep. The day, the water, the people, the warmth, the chill, the flowers, the silence, the noise. Everything about this journey has flowed through you like hot spring water over stone. Worn down your stress. Polished the sharp corners. Softened the static. You take a breath, slow and full. Let it fill your chest, your spine, your fingertips. And then, as if called, you rise again. It's time to return. Not just to your lodging, but to yourself. You wind back through alleyways now emptied of cats and children. You pass one final bathhouse, tiny, with a curtain that says closed until rain. You think about waiting anyway. But no. You've bathed enough. The last turn takes you back to your room. The floor creaks familiarly. You slide the door shut, the paper walls glowing faintly from street lamps beyond. You settle under the blankets. Your body remembers every step, every splash, every smile. And just as your eyes begin to flutter, you whisper to the room, or maybe to the centuries behind it. I'll be back. The wind is light tonight, almost non-existent, and the paper lantern outside your window barely stirs. Inside, everything holds its breath with you. You lie on your side, blankets pulled up, feeling the day in your bones. Not in a tired way, more like how warmth lingers in sun-heated stone long after dusk has fallen. In the distance, a wooden chime clicks softly. A breeze? Or maybe just memory. Sleep is near. You can feel it. But before it arrives, your mind drifts back to everything you've learned about 18th century Japanese bathhouses, yes, but also about the gentle rituals that once filled otherwise unremarkable lives. A world where even washing your face could carry spiritual weight. Where men and women took time to steam out the day's troubles. Where water wasn't just water, but a mirror, a comfort, a reset button. You imagine yourself standing in the doorway of your favorite bathhouse, the small, crooked one tucked behind the plum orchard. The owner nods at you like he's been expecting you all your life. You bow in return, because of course you do. Historians still argue whether certain bathing techniques held religious power or were merely symbolic habits tied to social class. Either way, one thing's clear, people took their time. They believed in the power of pause. You step inside once more, just in your thoughts now. The scent of enoki wood fills your lungs. There's a bowl of cold tea on a wooden tray and a towel still faintly warm from the sun. You walk past the other bathers and into the rear room, the quietest one, the place where even the steam seems hushed. You lower yourself into the water. There's no rush. No plans. No timeline. Just breath and heartbeat. Your eyes close as you listen for one last strange, soothing detail. Maybe a merchant outside arguing over soap. Maybe a poet reciting lines to a crab he caught in a rain barrel. Or maybe just the silence, thick as velvet. And then, something you hadn't expected. A memory of your real-life shower or bath back home. Maybe from last night. Or 3 weeks ago. The feeling of water down your back. The short escape it gave you from deadlines and laundry and doom scrolling. You smile. Because now, somehow, that moment feels bigger. More sacred. Maybe it always was. You pull your blanket a little higher, letting the imagined heat of the bath soak into your real-world skin. The lantern outside gives one final flicker. It's late. You've earned your rest. You've traveled back 300 years and returned intact. The story is done now. The lanterns have dimmed, the bathhouse doors are closed, and the soft steam of the past drifts upward into the cool, clear dark. You've walked barefoot through woodblock corridors and listened to water speak in gentle hushes. You've bowed without being rushed, soaked without being watched, and followed a rhythm of living that asked for no performance, only presence. And now, you breathe slower. Your body, no longer carrying the tightness of the day, begins to feel weightless against the mattress. Like your bones are softening. Like even gravity is easing off, just for tonight. Let the room grow still. Let the last thoughts evaporate like mist from a bamboo ladle. You don't need to remember every detail. The stories will wait. The people in them, naked, noisy, gentle, human, they'll still be there if you visit again. For now, it's enough to float. In this moment. In this breath. In this stillness. Outside, maybe the fan hums or a far-off car passes by. But inside, where your mind rests, everything is warm and quiet and held. You're in no hurry. Nothing is required of you anymore. Not even staying awake. So let go. Let the memory of that ancient water carry you. Let the warmth of a 700-year-old ritual fold itself around your modern, tired mind. Let sleep take over, like a door gently sliding shut. Like a lantern going out. Good night.